So the next thing that we're going to talk about is going to be the white balance. Okay, so now the white balance controls the color temperature of your camera. Okay, so different lights have different color temperatures, and this is usually measured in Kelvin. Some cameras measure it in mirrored, but that's a bit more technical. So daylight is usually rated at 5,600 Kelvin. We say 5,600 sometimes. So 5,600 Kelvin is usually daylight. And then when you have, like yellow tungsten light, usually have to come down to around 3,200 Kelvin. Okay, so on your camera, you have different settings. You have like tungsten, fluorescent, daylight, flash, cloudy, shade. You have even the auto white balance, which is where the camera tries to like judge the scene and determine the white balance for itself. So that's usually the auto white balance setting that a lot of beginners use. So if you look at the Kelvin scale here, you can see it ranges from 2,500 to 9,000. So if you look at this lower part, it caters to like very warm lights, tungsten lights. If you look at this second part, it caters to just mildly warm lights, more like bedside lamps and the rest of them. And then you see this part that is neutral. This is like daylight, white, pure white. And then you see this 6.5 and above, you're catering to like cool temperatures. As you're adjusting it, you can, like see what it's doing. So you can make technically correct decisions, which is, oh, I'm shooting outside during the daytime, I'll make it 5,600. Or you can make very creative decisions where you want things to look like nights, but you're shooting during the daytime, so you'd have to like take your white balance to almost like 2.5 or something, just to make things like cooler. Or if you want to make a warm light, like a different thing, then you adjust the white balance so like it looks different. So there you'd see creative decisions when we start reviewing images, but just try and keep all these things in mind. Then the next thing you want to look at is the aspect ratios. So for the aspect ratios, we have different ones. If you look at our presentation, we have like the 16:9, and then you have the 1:1, which is the square. Then you have the 4:5, which is vertical, which usually works for Instagram and Facebook posts. So the next one is going to be the 9:16, which is what you see on your phone, Instagram, TikTok, and the rest of them. And usually for 16:9, we have 1920 by 1080, which is the resolution. And then for 9:16, you flip the two. So that would be 1080 by 1920. Yes. Okay, so some of you might ask, aspect ratio, what if this thing gone, 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 gone? So let's quickly just talk about resolution. Resolution is the length and breadth of your pixels, so to say. So they're usually measured in pixels. So a 1920 pixels by 1080 should give you that. But when you now divide the 1920 by 1080, it's going to give you what we call an aspect ratio. That result is going to give you an aspect ratio. So 1920 divided by 1080 is 1.78. So if you say 1.78 is the aspect ratio, you can have different pixels give you that. So in 4K, let's say Ultra UHD, you can have 3840 by 2160. If you do that division, it's going to give you 1.78 as the aspect ratio. So it's the same thing, just at a higher resolution. Do you understand? Cool. So if we pop back to our diagram over here, you can see that we have different aspect ratios. We have 1.78, 1.85, 2.0, 2.35, 2.39. So if you notice, this black at the top keeps coming down. Okay, that means here is wider or here is smaller. So the smaller it gets, that's why the black bars keep coming down. And you use different aspect ratios to tell different stories, to cater to different things. And you can see how for this one, you see how this aspect ratio shows you more of the environment, and this other one too shows you more of the environment. Look at this western, you can see everybody in the frame. If you are using a 4:3, you will not see everybody in the frame. So you see this other one with the Christmas thingies and all that. This aspect ratio is used to show the vertical scale as opposed to the horizontal scale like we've seen in the previous images. Where I want us to get to today is going to be the composition and framing. And I feel this is the single best skill that you can have that separates you to an extent as someone with an eye for cinematography, so to say. Apart from lighting, apart from color, apart from, like making things look good with production design and all that, your framing and your composition is core to your foundation. If you don't have that, you can have the best lights, you can have the best gear, you'd not have fantastic images. You will not have thumbnail worthy images. Before we go on, we need to actually talk about what composition is and what framing is. Okay? Composition is how the visual elements are arranged to suit the story you're trying to tell. And we have techniques for composition. Framing, on the other hand, is how you highlight your subject, what you choose to show. It's a subset of composition. So it's creating a frame around your subject so that the viewer's eyes are being drawn to what you need them to be drawn to. So while composition has to do with all the visual elements in your image, framing most often deals with just your subject. Okay, how do you frame your subject? And that will tell us different things about your subject. Are you going to frame wide? Are you going to frame close? Is it going to be a close-up? Is it going to be an extreme close-up? Everything being arranged in this frame is not by mistake. There's a light here, there's a light there, the flower is here, it's not here, too close, it's here, this table is here. So these are all elements in my frame. So the frame is the entire container, how I am being framed. Wide here, medium here, that's the frame. But now, in this frame, there's a way the visual elements are being arranged. That's the composition. I hope you get it. Cool. So now let's talk about composition techniques. The first one, let's pop to our presentation, is going to be called the rule of thirds. So essentially what this says is divide your screen into 3 parts vertically and then 3 parts horizontally. And now place your subject at the intersection of these lines, any of the intersections, okay? This is like the easiest one, and it's rampant in almost every single image you see. It's crazy. So this is fairly easy to understand. Draw 2 lines horizontally, draw 2 lines vertically, and where they intersect, place your image there. Okay, cool. The second one, symmetry. Okay, so symmetry. Symmetry just means everything is arranged in equilibrium, or more or less at the center. You see our subject here in the middle. He's here and he splits the image into 2 halves. So what is on this side is equal to what is on this side. There's a car here, there's a car here, balance. There are trees here, there are trees here, balanced. So when you look at the image, the left side is balanced with the right side. That's basically symmetry. When you split it into 2, this half is equal to this half. So leading room and headroom. Now, if you look at our subject here, she's looking at someone. This space is called the leading room or looking room. A lot of camera operators know this. And then the distance between the top of the frame and her head is called the headroom. The way you arrange your headroom can evoke different emotions and can let us, like see different things that you're talking about. So just note it and then we'll address it when we start looking at our images. The next composition technique is called leading lines. You see this one all the time. So if you look at this image, it's a mix of almost 2 techniques. So, but right now we're focusing on leading lines. If you look at these lines here, they lead you towards the subject. And they're not just vertical and horizontal lines. If you look at these ones, they are still, with him, he's also vertical. And if you look at this line, it's going all the way down. If you look at these concentric circles too, they're also like going round, going round, going round, leading you as rings down to this guy. So those are leading lines. Then another concept in composition techniques is size equals power. So if you look at this frame, you can see that the keys are what are in focus, and they are taking like a lot of space for their size anyways. Keys are small, but in this frame we are trying to make them look big, so that draws the emphasis to the keys here, as opposed to your eyes being drawn to the guitar or the cupboard in the background. Once you look at this frame, the first thing you see are the keys. So we are making the keys big and every other thing in the frame smaller. The other one, depth. So depth as a composition concept or technique can refer to so many things. You have depth in terms of, you have spatial depth, which has to do with the space. You have color depth, you have contrast with size. You can create depth. Depth as a concept is one of the things that, cinematographers always look to achieve in every frame that they film. So whether it's with contrast, whether it's with color, whether it's with size, whether it's with the spacing, depth, very, very, very important. Then you have diagonals and triangles. Okay, if you look at this image, you can see triangles here, triangles there, diagonals. This also combines, like some leading lines, as you can see here. Okay, but you should look to form shapes in your images: diagonals, circles, squares, and different ones. So this is another example of like having your diagonals here. But I think you can see that leading lines are the foundation of this technique, and this is just building on leading lines. Cool. The other composition technique we need to look at is frame within a frame. So our subject here is this building, but you can see we are using the doorway arch of another building to frame it. And it's a unique way of framing things, and it draws your eyes. Same thing with, we are using this tree here to frame the house and the lake. So this is called frame within a frame. Then we have patterns and textures. This one, trust me, before you won't see it everywhere. It's not one of the things that people talk about, but patterns and textures, they go a long way, a very long way. In fact, that's why you have these patterns at my back. You have the vertical ones, you have like the flowers to just give like texture. You have these lights with the circles to just give a little pattern to make your image a little bit more interesting. So patterns and textures, you always want to try to introduce them wherever you can and whenever you can, so that it makes your image like look really nice. The next composition technique we have is called the rule of odds. So if you look at our image here, you have 1, 2, 3. When you just have 3 things, it kind of like gives you your image a certain balance, because if you split them, if you split your image into 2 halves, you also get symmetry from it. So rule of odds, you have 1 woman here, you have 2 people here, then you have 1 person here. To be crazy. This one, now we are talking about balance in the scene. Okay, balance in the scene. So you have this on this side, and then you have this on this side to also balance it. So balancing elements in the scene is also another composition technique, and you see it a lot when it comes to symmetry, because it's actually the foundation of symmetry. Whatever is on the left should also be equal to what's on the right, to ensure that the elements are balanced in the scene. So you can use it as a foundation of symmetry, and you can use it on its own where there is no symmetry. For example, this image, there is actually no symmetry, but because if you split it in half, you have this one balancing this one, but the number of ships here, boats here, do not balance the number of boats here. But what is prominent in this image are these 2, like points. and that's what creates that balance, even though every other thing seemingly looks unbalanced. Then you have the golden ratio. This one you won't understand it now. It takes a while, but yeah, this is what the golden ratio looks like, and it can actually apply to almost any point. Okay, but once you understand this one, this is an advanced composition technique that once you understand, you will be doing like great things. Like you can see it also in play here, the golden ratio. So once you take this shape and you apply it to different parts of your image, and before you place your subject where the golden ratio ends, you get a very nice looking image. Now let's move on to framing techniques, okay? So the first one we have is an extreme wide shot. This shot is taken from the movie called Inglourious Basterds. It typically features landscapes and massive building exteriors. So usually when you're like changing scenes, you want to show like an extreme wide shot to establish the new location before you get there. Okay, then you have a wide shot. A wide shot frames a character from head to toe. It also referred to as a long shot or a full shot, and it's used to show the audience the context of the space by or the scene by featuring scale, distance, and location. So an extreme wide shot is super wide, whereas a wide shot is not as wide as an extreme wide shot, but both of them serve to establish the scene, even though the extreme wide shot establishes the scene much better than the wide shot. Then we have a medium long shot, which is not as wide as the wide shot. As you can see in this image here of James Bond looking at the city, that's why they're using a medium long shot. So if you also, for those of you who are paying attention, you can also see that the aspect ratio is very wide. It gives more room to like the horizontal part of it. So that's why you can see most of the scale. Then you have the medium shot, which is typically from their waist up, the waist or slightly above the torso. Let me just say the torso up. So it's usually considered a personal shot as it frames a character so it appears the audience is in a conversation with them, because when you're typically conversing with people, you see them from like their torso up. So this is a chart that can show you full shot, medium shot, cowboy shot, which is also the three-quarter shot, then the medium shot from the torso up, medium close-up from the chest up, then you have the close-up from the neck up, and then the extreme close-up from the eyes or the nose. Take some time, look at a couple of frames and try to identify the framing techniques, the composition techniques, and any other thing that you find interesting. The other thing, visual exercise you need to do is you need to look at good images, good frames. I mean, just look at good frames. Go on a site like FrameSet, go on a site like ShotDeck, go on a site like FilmGrab. Look at still images from film. Find out how they make you feel, what makes them look good. You can look at these composition and framing techniques and you can tell, oh, this is why this looks good. Look at the production design. There are so many things that come together to make that image look good. But if you're judging the cinematography of it, why is this image framed the way it is? Why is this image looking like this? So those are the things. For example, this image now on screen now, it's very nice. It shows scale. But what makes it beautiful is the number of lights that are here. They're all like dots and they're accented all through. And you can see different textures. Even in the fire adds like a different texture to the image. Look at the colors, look at the gradation. There's even, if I split this image in half, there's even a certain level of symmetry. And then the image here on the left is balanced with this one on the right. And we can go on and on and on and on and on and on. There are so many things to consider. So in your quest to create cinematic images, please try to create interesting images. Try to implement a lot of the techniques that we've spoken about today. I know I've not been able to touch everything. This is just like to introduce you and let you know that work day, the work plenty. We just, I'm a cinematographer. It's not like that to take years of studying. And just give respect to your cinematographers and your videographers too, because they are working on the fly. It's not easy to create something out of nothing. especially when your hands are tied. So yes, for those of you who are interested, it's a lot of studying. Feel free to reach out to us, whatever, however, IG handle, all that, it will be here. And yeah, attend our classes, attend other people's classes. Just be a sponge and soak up knowledge from wherever you can soak it up from. And I guess I will see you on the next edition of this class.